Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to Torquay. It's nice to be back. We haven't actually played in Torquay itself, but we're back in South Devon. We came down in September and we did a little tour. We went to Stoke Gabriel. Some of you might have seen us there. We went to Shalden. We played with Tinmouth Jazz, and it's lovely to be back. A big thank you to David for putting us on here. That was, we probably got the idea of what we were playing there. We had the Strictly Come Dancing theme tune and Never Gonna Give You Up. We're going to play some original music for you now. So this is written about where my wife Jade and I live, which is Whitchurch Down, over near Tavistock. And it's an original composition from our album, which we released last year. And it's the first track from the album. And it features a number of people in the band. We've got Tom on the trombone, in the solo. We've got Mike on the tuba, and myself. And this is Whitchurch Down. Thank you very much. So we're going to go on to some tunes we've been playing them for a little while now. So this is an arrangement of mine. It's been going on. We've started the band really back in 2017 for one gig in Bovey Tracy. We actually went very close to Bovey Tracy today. We went to Liverton. We went to the school, Blackpool. So we're sort of coming home to our roots, if you like. But we didn't really do anything much after. We thought this gig went really well in 2017, but we thought we must do something, and then we didn't really do anything for 2 years. And then we put together the band and did some more arrangements. We did a recording at Wells Cathedral School back in 2019, and this is one of the tunes that we played then. So it's been going for quite a while. It features Jade the Nightingale on the flute, and Nightmare? Yes, A Nightmare in Berkeley Square. This is by Manning Sherwin, and we're going to do a couple of tunes for you to feature the 80th anniversary of VE Day. And this was a wartime favourite, and this is A Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square. Thank you very much. Some very stylish playing there from the band. I really appreciate that. So, lovely stuff. And I like it on the cut mute, so I think we have to keep that in. That's great.
Are you highlighting the fact that I forgot my bucket mute?
Possibly, but I did actually enjoy it. With, happy accident there, Hugh. I really like that. Thank you. So we're going to move swiftly on to a couple of pieces that we originally wrote for a series of concerts in 2020, that fateful year. And we were going to do a whole series of concerts. We had 4 concerts lined up. And we were going to do that based on the 70th anniversary of the birth of Karen Carpenter, fabulous singer. Unfortunately, something got in the way. I can't remember now, it slipped my mind. Something happened in 2020 that we will rather forget, that meant that all the concerts were cancelled and we didn't get to do our lovely series of tributes. But it's now the 75th anniversary of Karen Carpenter, so we thought we'd dig them out again. We're going to do a couple of pieces. The first one is a lesser known number. It's called Saturday, and this is actually by This is by John Betts and Richard Carpenter, and then we're going to do a much more well-known tune, which is on our album. I haven't mentioned it enough yet. You'll get fed up with that, but there will be a stall at the back if anybody wants to buy our album that came out last year. And this is on the second tune we're going to play is on our album, and that's called Rainy Days and Mondays. I'm sure a lot of you will know that one. So we'll start off with Saturday. You might wonder why I have to talk quite so much. You might think, oh, can't they just get on with it? Because, you know, he's the boring one. We want to hear all of these people doing all the really exciting. But you may notice that they've got quite a lot of instruments between them. There's only actually 7 of us in the band, but I think there's about 19 instruments on the stage. So in between every piece, we got to swap instruments and things. So we're going to carry on now with our Rainy Days and Mondays. Features Gavin on the flugelhorn, and again we've got Jade on the flute, and I'll introduce you to members of the band as we go along. But this is Rainy Days and Mondays. Thank you very much. So, just to avoid Ed having to go and get the clarinet, we're going to move on to our next piece. After that, there's a slight saga on the clarinet front, which we won't go into for reasons of legal reasons. We won't go into it for legal reasons. We can't mention it anymore. We've all signed non-disclosure agreements because it never happened, did it? No. We've been doing school workshops all day. I mentioned today, and the band have worked extremely hard. We've been to Blackpool School in near Liverton. We've been to First School, which was Buckfast, near Buckfast, next to Buckfast Abbey. So that was very nice. And then we went to South Dartmoor Community College this afternoon and worked with students. We've probably seen about 350 children today, so we've worked really hard. So we're going to move on to another piece about the local area. It seems fitting to move on to that. And this one is called, it's called Hills and Valleys. Yeah. No. Yeah. So no, we made a snap decision that we didn't work out the telepathy before. No, that's fine. And very good. And yes, so we're going to play a piece called Hills and Valleys. This is the second track on our album. It's actually the title track of our album, and it features Ed on the soprano saxophone. And this is Hills and Valleys. That's a good start. Whenever he God, it's the final sacrifice. Thank you very much. So we're going to feature another member of the band now, and this is actually his own composition. So this is Snake's Meadow by Tom Green, and it has a trombone solo in it. Funny that, isn't it?
Gave myself all of the glory of my really.
That's right. So we were fortunate enough to back in June last year. We were fortunate enough to feature on BBC Radio 3 in Tune, and this was one of the pieces that we played. It was one of the sort of in the final days of Sean Rafferty, and we were fortunate enough to be given an interview to promote our album. We haven't mentioned that yet, have we? We have an album at the back, which will be available for sale in the interval. This is one of the tracks, and we're lucky enough to have Tom write this one for us. And it's called Snake's Meadow. It's after, what is it after, Tom?
Snake's Head Fritillary flower. I live in Oxford, and there's lots of them around, but not many in other places. So, yeah, and this is the time of the year. So if you're in Oxford, go and find some Snake's Head Fritillaries.
And Tom was actually in Oxford this morning, weren't you, Tom?
I was in Oxford.
What time did you leave?
5 a.m. I got home.
So there you go. I think he just needs a round of applause for being awake. Fantastic. So on we go with Snake's Meadow. Thank you very much. So we're going to do another sort of cover arrangement, if you like, now. One of my arrangements. Again, I did this one for the very first gig we did back in 2017. This is a cover of a James Bond theme. This is Nobody Does It Better from the 1977 film The Spy Who Loved Me. It's by Marvin Hamlish with lyrics by Carly Simon. And it features Gavin again on the flugelhorn. We've got some sort of little other James Bond hints. See if you can spot the other theme tunes that we've got in there. But yes, so this is again, it's on our album, just in case you wanted to have it. And Nobody Does It Better. So we're going to play a tune now. This is a sort of cover, and this isn't one of my arrangements. This is a tune that I remember Clifford, and it's by Benny Golson in memory of the trumpet player Clifford Brown. And it's a Steve Waterman arrangement, actually, originally for 4 flugelhorns, but we've arranged it for 2 flugelhorns, tenor saxophone, and what's the other one? Is it soprano? No, there's so many instruments over there, and I think it's soprano. Yes. So there's. I suppose I'd better do something. I've made these 2 trumpet players work so incredibly hard, and flugelhorn players all day. I suppose I ought to play the flugelhorn. Do you mind?
No,
And And I always feel very self-conscious having two fabulous instrumentalists next to me doing this, but I'm going to have a go at it. So yeah, this is I Remember Clifford by Benny Dawes. Thank you very much, everyone. We've got one more tune before the break. We're going to do a tune called Summary. This is by Andy Haig. So Andy Haig is a Bristol-based trumpet player and composer. He wrote this especially for our tour in the autumn. It's called Summary. So we're getting close to being able to actually play it in the right season. We did it in the autumn and we've done it in the spring. So hopefully we'll get a gig in the summer one day and we'll get to play it in the summer. But anyway, without further ado, this is Summary.